Good evening. Welcome to another edition of Buzzwords and Music. I'm here this evening with Andrew Shearer. He is the head, well, I don't know if head is the right term. He formed Gonzerific, which is an artist collective based out of Athens, Georgia. We don't want to confuse people with you're in Greece or anything. Uh, they've been making feminist B movies since 2001. And by operating completely outside of the entertainment industry, Gonzerific's do it yourself ethic has been essential to its health and longevity. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Buzz, it's an honor, man. Always.
It's always a pleasure to see you.
It's always an honor and a pleasure to be in your presence and to get to converse with you, sir.
Well, yeah, we only get to do that like once a year, really.
It's true.
You know, so now we've broken habit here. So, when did I first meet you? Maybe like December of '08.
It was exactly December of '08. Let me set the scene for your listeners here, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I was involved with music for 10 straight years of my life, punk rock, and I was a lead singer. I was also a guitar player. I was also a bass player, also a drummer of pretty much everything. I was in several bands in the Atlanta area. And by 2008, I had retired. I had stopped. I decided, by the time I was 30, I was just going to kind of hang it up because I never liked old guy bands. No offense, Buzz.
No,
Railhead
no,
Punk.
that's why I'm not in a band.
This is not, rock bands is a little different. And
Yeah.
so by that time I was already deep into making movies with Gonzerific and everything. And I still had a friend from high school that always wanted me to play guitar and sing at her Christmas parties.
Right.
And you were giving her son piano lessons at the time. And
Oh,
you
wow,
were
that's
just
right.
introduced to me as Buzz, right? I didn't know.
Yeah, I don't even think we were formally introduced. Maybe a quick going
Yeah.
around the room. This is so and so, so and so. Everybody, this is Buzz.
This is to say that had I known
Oh,
who you
please.
were, and I've told you this before,
I
had I
know.
known who you were, I would have been terrified to play, and I am never terrified to play. I would have, not that you're a judgmental person, and not that you're an intimidating guy, but just I am a big fan of the style of music that you play and the people that you've played with, and knowing that you're involved with them in the capacity that you were would have kind of freaked me out a bit. And I am glad that I found that out after I'd played rather
Well,
than before.
from my side of the sofa, when you got up and you played, the two things that struck me, maybe one thing, I'm not sure if you can count them as two, but everything you did was very honest and had integrity to it. And those are two things I always look for in music or an artist, anybody I've ever produced. I don't want somebody that's trying to, front or be somebody, that they're not. And that was, and I came, totally unlike me, I came over and introduced myself. And that in itself was a big deal because I'm a fairly introverted person, especially at a party. But, you know, it, it just, no pun intended, you struck a chord.
Buzz, I'm honored to know that. You have told me that before, and it just something I can't really get my head around because I was used to doing that. I'd played the party for years, and I knew that what she wanted was simply me.
Right,
And at this stage of my life, that's all I wanted to be. I didn't need to put on an act because I knew that's not what she was looking for.
right.
And
And
so
and I got that vibe just from exactly what you did. Even the guitar slung way low.
I still had that punk rock element to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I that was so formative for
I
me
think you
that
did it in your boxers, didn't you?
yes, I did.
Yeah.
That was a comfort zone thing for me. The least amount of clothes I could get away with was that way on stage, but definitely amongst mixed company.
Yeah, I never got a chance to see you with your band, but you used to play across the street from where I lived at, what was it, Dottie's? Or
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was Dottie's. It was a double wide trailer, and yeah, if only you'd caught me there because I feel as though Dottie's were some of my best shows
Hmm.
because I always liked it when you're on eye level with the crowd. I always liked it when they were as close to you as humanly possible with the
I
on the
love that
stage.
as well.
Yeah,
It's an intimacy that you can't get um, when you're playing on an elevated stage,
absolutely.
or even, I mean, I've done gigs with, where I've played like in front of 60,000 people. It's not the same. I still remember one gig that we did with when I was with Curtis. We played in Paris, and we played at this place called Morning Sun. And this was not a huge club. I mean, you literally could sit at the table and play the upper part of my piano for me. And that's how close everybody was. So there was a little bit of that. There's a little bit of nervousness that goes with that, but there's also the feeling that you're really connecting and you're just there. And you have to be in the moment.
My God, Buzz, every time you tell a story like that, I'm just like, it blows my mind, man. Because, here I am thinking, oh, we were just lucky to have such great communication as musicians because we were in such close quarters. That always takes a barrier away. But I didn't consider the fact that you were also communicating more intimately and more immediately with the crowd as well.
Yeah. I mean that's kind of part of it. You when you're on a bigger stage and you're playing in front of a lot of people, for me, it was always I don't even know anybody's there. I'm playing for the band,
Mm.
you know. And with Curtis, you had to because he had that light falsetto voice. You had to play so quietly that we could actually have a conversation on stage. He always said, "Just let the PA do the work, cat." And I think I told you this story, and then we'll move on to you. But I got in a little bit of felt like I got in a little bit of trouble when we were playing the Town and Country in London, and Mick Huckner, Mick Hucknall, I think his name is, from Simply Red, was there, and he came backstage and he met Curtis. He was such a huge fan, and and Curtis didn't know who Simply Red was.
Sure.
So in the middle of the show, he walks over to the piano, and we're doing like "Give Me Your Love." So I've got like an extended piano thing, and he's like, "Who was that? Who was that cat?" And I was like, "Mick Hucknall, Simply Red." And he turns around and gets on the mic and goes, "Mick Huckleberry from Symphony Red is in the audience." And I was like, "Oh no!"
Dude, that's great.
And I knew everybody knew I had just fed them that information, But that was Curtis. I mean, he introduced Sean Lennon as John Jr.
Oh God.
Yeah,
Well,
but that was just Curtis.
priceless.
Yeah. Anyway, so when you left the music business, so to speak,
Yes.
you you concentrated much more on Gonzorific.
Yeah, I took Gonzorific from being a movie review website and a zine that I had started in the late 90s. And so in 2001, while still in the band that I was in at the time, decided to make a movie with the singer as the star, Monica Fuller, and her roommate at the time, Carol Lott. And I just, I found that I enjoyed it more just bringing in somebody else. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be great to make movies but run it like a band?
Hmm.
And it can be instead because I didn't know anything about making movies. I'd never been on a movie set. I didn't know how it worked. I just thought you get a camera, you get the people in, you write story, and then action, cut, you know.
Isn't that kind of it?
That is kind of it. Yeah. And Georgia wasn't like it is now in terms of movie industry and visibility and
Now, did this
digital.
start? Did this start in Atlanta?
While I was living in Athens, but I
Oh,
began making the movies in Atlanta because all my bandmates were there.
right. Okay.
Because I didn't move to Athens until about 97, didn't make a friend until about '05.
What?
But yeah, I worked at night, long story.
Mm.
But I wasn't able to get out and see things and do things and meet people because nothing cool happens before 11:30.
Yeah,
We're gonna pitch a bitch at 11:30.
that's it.
What you waiting on? 11:30.
11:30, man. That's funny that you use the pitch a bitch thing because every time with this bass player with the 3 degrees, every time we go out on stage, he's like, "All right, we're gonna pitch a bitch in about 10 minutes," and we do the huddle thing and pitch a bitch.
Yeah, no, for real. And so I just found that I was like, man, I like this so much more because it's different every time. You're not stuck in the same room with the same people every time. And people can cycle in and out if they're not feeling it. If you have beef with somebody, you can just be like, all right, well, cool. See you later, man. Maybe it'll work out, maybe it won't, but it don't make or break you.
Yeah.
Well, you have, I wouldn't say control because that's not right. Because we are like a group and it is a group creative thing, like a
Did it
band.
start out that way as well?
Yeah, it
Oh,
always was. I knew that I didn't want to be in the spotlight. I'd spent my life up until that point being, even when I was a guitarist or a bass player, Buzz, you can imagine, I was all over the place.
yeah.
I was a ham. And so I wanted somebody else to take a turn being the ham, step to the mic, as it were, pick up an instrument, as it were. But I was no longer limited to people that could play an instrument,
Right.
just bodies that could talk, whoever wanted to get down, get down. And then it was just in movie form.
Yeah. Well, I've been fortunate to be part of some of those.
Yes.
Um, I think we were talking earlier. It was '09 was the first year I came. Um, Tell everybody every year except for this past year,
Mhm.
you do a show in
In
Athens.
Athens. Yes, we do. Buzz, I was so stoked to have you there. Knowing that I had your support, it made me feel validated in a way I can't explain because you didn't go to high school with me. You weren't in bands with me. You had no real reason to support it the way that you did. And I was just like, I felt great about what I was doing. So starting in 2008, an art house theater in downtown Athens, the hub of all culture in Athens.
Yes.
Whenever Athens wants people to think it's cool, it always talks about its downtown scene. It gave birth to the B-52s and REM
Right.
and all this other stuff that it always wears on its sleeve. 40 Watt Club, which was my very first
Oh,
show
yeah, yeah.
before Cine was built. The art house theater was built. Gonzerific's very first show was at the 40 Watt Club at midnight.
Really?
Psycho Vixens played. Yeah, yeah. So Cine every single year in the fall, usually around October, November, we play for 2 nights all the movies that we made that year because
Hmm.
that's how much work we make.
Yeah.
So everyone gets to see. Nobody makes money off this stuff. I don't pay people. I give them Chinese food or pizza. But the reward really is getting together and enjoying the work that we did together and getting to see in a proper movie theater with a proper sound system and a proper screen with proper seats.
And a proper audience.
That's right. And we really can then see the fact that we've created something. So these things are also released on DVDs. So in terms of music, for everybody that's listening to this that is a musician, our yearly movie shows, that's the show. That is the concert. That
Right.
is the performance. That is the event. Our albums are the DVD releases. This is functions more like a mixtape. It's a collection of tracks. So
Right.
I think of the movies as tracks, and I think of the show as the concert, and I think of the DVDs as the record.
Yeah, the show is it's Woodstock.
It's the
All
thing.
you have all your different because you have so many people that contribute to your films, and they're not all written and produced and directed by you.
Not at all.
That's what makes the communal thing so nice.
Yes.
Um, I've worked in a studio that kind of had that same concept where, it was a big studio, but there was like 8 rooms, and each individual person had their own room, but there was a lot of back and forth. Hey, what do you think? Could you do something on this for me? Could you mind putting a synth track down here? I imagine it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a great vibe. Oh man, and that sounds so cool, by the way, Buzz.
Yeah.
That sounds so great. Yeah, it was. That's the way it is. I wanted everyone to feel, well, as a contributor, I wanted everyone to feel listened to, validated, and important. And the first year that you came was 2009. So we'd only really been doing the shows for a couple of years at that point. You came to one of the most special ones we'd had, because we were playing the movie The Erotic Couch, which was ended up being our biggest seller and most well-known movie for years.
Really?
Yep. And we also had to go along with that, because it was a sexy movie. It was kind of a parody of old sex movies. We also had to go along with that was the photography exhibit, which was a gallery of nudes that I'd shot of the people that are involved with the films. And this was never something that was available online. This was never something that was available in book form. I never digitally transmitted any of those images.
Wow.
The only way you could see them was at this photography exhibit. And it was something you had to walk. Yeah, it was like a peep show.
Yeah.
You walked through it. Do you remember?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that was I was so proud that was the one you came to, because we had really, this wasn't the early days of trying to figure it out. I mean, our very first screening at Cine was a movie that was made on camcorder, all handheld, looked cool on TV, but on the big screen made me want to vomit. I said,
really?
I can't believe it. I'm at the premiere of my first feature film in a theater, and I can't even look at the screen because I'm feeling sick.
Well, we're always our own worst critics sometimes.
Truth.
I think first time I heard any of my music in Cine, I was like, oh, I need to do a better job at mixing and.
Was that Melpomene? Or was that Action Figure?
I don't remember.
You had to really twist my arm to get me to actually accept help from you, Buzz.
Yes, and it all came about. I know you had been working with Matt for ever since day one. You were in high school together, I think, right?
Oh, we were 11 and 13, or like 11, 10 and 12 or something. Like we are. He's my original collaborator.
Right.
Very young.
And I knew that, and I wasn't looking to worm my way in. I remember going to one of Christie's birthday parties at Zuffy's, or I think it was. And I was like, come on, you got to give me something to do. I really want to do one. And you threw me a short film you had done in high school with, I forget, Seeing Eye Cat.
Oh, that's right. Oh, that was Sam's college project.
Right. So that was the first thing I did. It was a silent film. I had a ball doing it. And I look back on that, and probably I overthought it and overdid it. But at the time, I thought it was really cool. But go ahead.
On my side of the couch, as you said earlier, you're a professional musician of a very high caliber, somebody I respect very much. You were not just a guy I grew up with or just somebody I met through bands. You were someone that already has a well-established name and career. And I was like, if I can't pay this man a lot of money, or at least some money, this is not something that I feel is. I didn't want to. I just was. This is. I didn't think it was beneath you. I'm struggling because I didn't want to use the word beneath you, because you clearly didn't think it was. But I was intimidated to do it, to enter that with you, because of the amount of respect I have for you. And I was like, he doesn't need to be doing this. He needs to be scoring Hollywood stuff. I mean, that was my opinion of it.
No, because I had never really scored anything before. I had one attempt at a what was supposed to be a Hollywood film, and it got canned right before I even got started with it. I forgot who was in it, but it was, it was some kind of thriller, political thriller or something. And I had already spotted the movie. I was like, yeah, I can't wait to get into this, but it never happened. And so, Cine Cat was my next foray into the art.
Well, I chose that one. Any sane man who gets an offer from someone like you to do any sort of art with him, for him, in support of his projects, that's a massive deal, and they would say yes immediately and take advantage of that generosity. Hold on, Julie's calling.
Okay.
I'm gonna put her on the thing. We're at generosity. Let's not forget. Hello.
All right. Where were we?
We're at gratitude. We're at
Gratitude.
gratitude, and so
With the movie, yes.
with Seeing
Cat.
Eye Cat, I just was like, man, you are so generous. I at least wanted to wait until we had a project where it could be driven 100% by music, and we wouldn't be dropping your track down so that other people can talk, and I wouldn't have fart sounds or vampires or ghost whooshes or whatever over your music. I wanted your music, wow, right in front and center. And so Seeing Eye Cat was a great way to do that because it was going to be all music. Right. It was a silent film. And so I'm like, you said, here's what did it for me. You go, Andrew, I'd like to get into doing soundtracks. And I'm like, okay, cool. We'll be your guinea pig. I was happy to do it. I'm like, holy shit, what an opportunity.
Yeah. Well, and it led to a lot more for me, not only with you, but with Henrik.
Mm-hmm.
Because that brought on Depression, his movie Depression.
Right, didn't actually bring depression, and he paid you.
For Depression, I don't know. I think he did, but definitely for Babysitter Massacre, Awkward Thanksgiving, I think I ended up doing like 5 for him.
But he paid you.
Yeah.
Cool.
And and it's all about just. You support somebody. Usually something good always comes back when you do something, selflessly, so to speak. And I just wanted to be a part because I just dug the whole vibe of what I had been seeing. And that may have been actually may not have been even the following year. I don't know when that was.
I just know you were a hit with everyone.
Well,
everyone really liked you, and I think had the proper amount of respect for you as an artist and as a musician, someone with that career and the track record that you've got. But also, everyone just loves your personality.
Well, what's not to love? Yeah. But one of the things that and I know I've told you this before. 2 things I love about the way you make a film is you cut to temp music and it creates a rhythm in your editing. So when I see one of your films, I go through it and I can, that's going to be at this tempo. This feels like it's in this key. And, all those elements just come together and makes it a lot easier. Where some things I've done, I've kind of had to struggle with where the timing should be. And I see this even in some major films I watch, and I'm just like, man, I wish that... Because I've learned a little bit about not how to direct, but what to look for in direction because of you and everybody that's involved, with Gonzerific. So I've picked up things where I wouldn't have ordinarily have paid attention to. I'll listen to usually when I'm watching a movie, the rule is if you hear the music, you've done a bad job.
Correct. Yeah. If you notice the score, yeah.
Right. Now, in your films, you have my score, you put my stuff front and center, which, because we have such similar taste in a lot of music, I know you like, you like the funk, 70s,
Yes.
and so like through the Bad Girl Dracula series, that's exactly where I went. I go back and when I watch, you did you put out a CD with all of them.
Yeah, Bad Girl Dracula was it was a bigger I wanted to create our very first icon, our very first recurring character. And Bad Girl Dracula, for those of you who've not seen it, is a woman vampire, and
Yeah.
she's just the bomb. She's just the sexiest and the coolest and the most irresistible. I mean, she just has no trouble getting all the blood. So
Played by the fantastic Deflowered.
the inimitable Deflowered. The whole thing wouldn't have existed. I had an idea for Bad Girl Dracula, but it was not going to be anything like this. Dee really made it.
Well, she's become quite the collaborator with you over the last. When did you two first start working together?
Dee and I watched her perform. She's a burlesque
Yes.
artist, and so I saw her perform an act at the Go Bar in Athens, Georgia, in the late fall, perhaps even winter of 2011. And she did an act called Jehovah Baby, where she was dressed as the Virgin Mary. I only saw her face. You've never seen burlesque like the way these people do, because
Yes.
it's not necessarily always about taking off the clothes. It's also about
There's a show and a storyline, and
yes, yeah, and
yeah,
so
I've seen several, and
I felt an immediate kinship with what they do. I felt understood. I felt less alone when I saw the burlesque, the modern burlesque of what the Effie's Club Follies troupe was doing. And so Dee and I became friends over Messenger and started hanging out and exchanging ideas. And I just said, I would love an opportunity to expand your art form, what you do, and how can I help you? That was really what I wanted to do. She was already a star. I just wanted I just wanted for her to be a star of screen as well as the stage.
well, her film presence is amazing.
And it's a tradition with B movies and cult film and exploitation film to have burlesque stars in them. That was something that Russ Meyer did. That was something that goes back.
Now that I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm familiar with Russ Myers.
Well, that's where a lot of the stars came from. He's like, you're already great on stage, so you'd be great on camera. No training required, no direction required. And I respected her very much as an artist, and we just became kind of inseparable.
Yeah.
And I was her photographer, and she was my movie star, and that's the way it worked. And so by the time we got to Bad Girl Dracula, we were firing on all cylinders, man. She knew what needed to be done in this character. I, of course, knew that this was going to be the project that only Buzz Amato is going to know how to do the music for. I can't explain this to any other kind of composer. My favorite decade for film and music is the 70s. My favorite year, if anyone asks, for cinema, it's 74. But you knew right away what it would need.
Well, and by including a temp score with old, because you always have, and some of the stuff that you find for temp score, I'm sitting there Shazam and go, God, I like that. Where did he get that?
Right.
And how am I going to compete with that? I don't try to copy what you had. I just try and pick up the vibe. I will kind of do the tempo very close because that's how you were editing and shooting to, or I guess when do you put the movie in your editing or the music rather, in the editing process or?
I cut to a song.
Oh,
Music goes down first, get the vibe that I want, and then we put the images on top.
wow.
I mean, I'm cutting to music always because as a musician, I'm all about rhythm. I'm all about backbone. I'm all about being in the pocket.
Yeah.
And so I want my movie to be in the pocket.
Well,
So
it shows.
I'm glad. I think in dynamics in terms of rhythms. And so I start with the song I like. This is the opening. This is the pace I want. This is the groove I want. This is the vibe I want. So I go through and find a song. I usually already know what it's supposed to sound like, so it's easy to come up with.
Right.
Get it in there, and then I start cutting my movie to that song. Because right now I got the most expensive soundtrack in the world. It ain't gonna stay there, but for right now, my movie's gonna have that. And I believe the first Bad Girl Dracula screening may have had the temp score, and we put that one in the very first episode of it later because Bad Girl Dracula is a
Three
three
trilogy.
chapter kind of thing,
Yeah.
and so they all together make a single film.
I
But
hope we haven't seen the last of her though.
I doubt we have, sir. I doubt we have. Um, but I knew Buzz and I talked about it from the beginning. It was understood that he was going to be the person that was going to lay down the groove for this movie. And I can remember one of my most insanely unbelievable moments was when we heard Bad Girl Dracula with your music in it, and through a theater speakers the very first time. It was like, this is just not happening.
Huh.
This is just, it was to me unbelievable because I was like, don't get me wrong, I would have liked this the instant you and I got to know each other. This is what this was a dream for me. But I also respected you a lot and didn't presume that you were, just because I knew you, that this would be some kind of favor I could ask of you. So I didn't. But at this point, this was years after the fact, almost a full decade after knowing you. Bad Girl Dracula happens. It was just the stars aligning. I always knew I'd know it. I think we always knew which one it would be, but I'm telling you, you couldn't have, even the movies I based it on, even the music I had originally had in there, doesn't compare to what ended up happening. We crafted a true original together. I'm so proud of it.
Well, and it was so fun to do because, you know, when you mentioned the 70s and things like that, I had a couple of things where, you know, I was like percussionist Master Henry. And you had one piece of temp music that was very percussion heavy. And I was like, well, this sounds like a job for Master Henry.
I remember when you told me this.
And then in 3, I actually pulled a Curtis sample in. Nothing that he ever used on a record.
I know, but still.
Yeah.
I mean,
He just, you know, how his guitar stuff was. And it's just very signature.
it just, Buzz, I know it happened, but it's like one of those things where you're just like, you go out of your body when you realize what happened. And I'm not saying this to wax your car or anything. It's the absolute truth about me.
Plus, I don't drive, so.
Right. I have trouble asking for help. I just really try to do everything myself. And as a musician, I really can. Like, I can score all these movies myself.
Yeah, and you've done some great things.
Thanks.
A lot of the films I see, you know, I can instantly tell because I always come up to you afterwards and go, "Did you do that?" You know, because
very flattering.
Because you maintain a little bit of that punk vibe of yours, and it's kind of just, let's just go for it. Where I'm more of a, I need to think about this. I need to get this right, and I'm thinking I need to get this right for you. I need to get it right for D, the rest of the people, and I need to get it right for me. So consequently, I watch your films probably as much as you do when I'm scoring. I mean, to the point where I know all the dialogue. But when I come come to the uh, the show and see it on the screen, it's an entirely different thing for me.
Yeah.
I hear it differently. I'm seeing it differently. I'm no longer in my studio looking at a screen going, all right, stop. I got to catch this little piece here. It's just very cool.
It turns into something else. It leaves your hands, it leaves my hands, it leaves all our hands, and they always say you make a movie like 3 times or 4 times or whatever it is. You make it once when you write it, another when you shoot, another when you cut, and another when you screen. The movie really takes on several different lives, and I do agree with that because
Yeah.
that communal experience. I I don't know how you feel when you're sitting there watching it with a crowd. If you're sitting there sort of picking it apart and being a perfectionist about it and noticing little things, or if you just sort of like, it's like kind of the difference between hearing a song on record and then watching it in a crowd
I liken it to when the first time I hear a record, I do not pick it apart. I don't listen. I don't listen for anything. I want to just see how it affects me emotionally. What's the impact? And when I come to the theater, I've already picked it apart.
right.
So when I come to the theater, now I'm able to, it's like listening to the record for the first time. And, I hear things that, on my end that, well, I could have done this a little better. Usually more in my mixing, because mixing for a theater speaker is a little different, because you're not afraid to crank that up.
Yeah. Now, when I mix movies that I've done the music for, this is always through speakers. I've never through headphones because I know
Yeah, same here.
the audience will not be wearing headphones when they watch this movie. This needs to be for the theater speakers, and so yes, I'm exactly the same way. I crank it up.
Yeah, and when I'm writing and everything, I'm because I'm going to be here 10, 12, 14 hours at a clip. I'm monitoring at fairly low levels, but when I think I have the scene done, I kind of reach over and it's like, all right, let's see. Let me go sit back on the couch and see how it hits me.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
I just felt like in the very first Bad Girl Dracula, I thought my mixes were kind of muddy. And I wish I'd have spent, more time. Sometimes I take too long in the writing process, and I know you're going, I need it by the 11th. And, oh, well, it's the 9th. Okay. But, that goes back to my days at working at a record label when they go, we need that record next week. And it's like, well, I haven't even finished recording it yet.
Uh,
And they would just be told they had to wait.
sure.
But you have a live show happening,
You do, yeah, and
you
that's
know.
it's a distinction, yes.
Yeah. So I'm not necessarily hurrying through things. I'm missing, but I am missing some things. But what was it, 2 years ago when 3 played?
I think so, yes. 2019. Yeah,
Yeah, the last one before COVID. So
that was it. Yeah.
yeah, I was pleased with the entire thing.
Cool.
I was like, wow, this sounded really good. Finally, after 10 years, I've got this right now.
Oh my God. Yeah,
Well, well, because I'm actually mixing, and that's not something I ever really did. But nowadays, this is where I envy you with the community aspect to what you do, because and I've talked about this on here many times and have gotten negative feedback, but I miss collaboration. Music has become so solitary now,
uh,
and I miss that. That's why a lot of times I'll bring in Rick Hinkle, friend of mine. We've done some stuff with on Henrik's films. because one of his films he had the gratuitous nude scenes for the slasher movie Babysitter Massacre,
Oh, I remember this. Yeah.
and every time I tried to score it, it sounded like a '70s porn movie.
Hmm.
So I had to give that to Rick, and he just played classical guitar on it, and it worked perfectly.
Yeah, more like 90s porn.
I would have never thought to do that.
Yeah, more, he turned it into late night cable porn.
Yeah, it's a good title for a.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, for me, man, making the movies, being on set, that's where it's at. That's the jam. That is really where we are working it all out together.
Yeah, now
That's
see, I've never experienced that.
Well, I'll tell you, that's like being in the room working that out. That's like, all right, well, you start here, then you come in here. That's where all of that choreography happens. That's what I'm in it for mostly. When I was in music, I was in it for being on stage. I hated absolutely every other aspect of it. I just lived for performance.
Right.
But with movies, I live for the being on set with everybody.
Now,
That's
see,
really
I would liken that to like, I've had several people that are like, man, I'd really like to go to the studio with you one night, and they come like on a night when you're mixing, and it's like, are you going to keep playing that part over and over and over and over and
Yes.
over? Yes, that's exactly what, and I'm sure you have to do the same thing.
With editing, gosh, nobody wants to watch edit because man, that's really me cutting, moving, cutting, playing over, getting it right. Like,
Right. Well, I know with especially in the last few years, you've included like outtakes of things,
yeah,
and so I know you guys are having a lot of fun,
a lot of fun.
but there to an outsider, there would have to be an element of, why are you going to do that again? Why do they have to come in from this side and not over there?
No, I know, man, and it would seem tedious, but quite honestly, after every single movie, I walk off going like, I didn't do shit. Like I joked the whole time. How did a movie get made? Because I'm really just goofing off, making jokes. I have people look at me going like, "Are we making the movie? I mean, what is this? Your comedy routine?" I'm like, actually, yes.
Yeah.
You're all saying the dumb shit that I wrote.
That's true.
It's absolutely the truth. And so it is. Put it this way, Buzz, if I'm not having fun, I shouldn't be doing it.
Right. I agree with that 1,000%.
It is the only reason to be doing it. If art isn't happening,
Yes.
then what are we here for? That's kind of the way I feel about it.
And I always love the opening to your show. That I think you've just started this like in the last 4 or 5 years, maybe.
There's the scene of Jonas Mekas and Andy Warhol.
Yeah.
The juxtaposition where he's talking about film is poetic and all this other stuff, and then Warhol is just sort of
And
flatlining it.
I dig the fact that in the background is, I think it's a poster of the Fugs, because I remember listening to them when I was like 13 or 14 years old. My sister had a couple of albums by them.
Yeah.
And of course I could only play those when she was not around or my parents weren't around.
Yeah.
It was like sneaking Frank Zappa records in at some point, going, really, people were upset about this?
Well, I mean,
Yeah, it's the '60s, so
yeah,
it was a different vibe.
sure.
But yeah, so I really like the way you open, and then you always close every show out with "Midnight Train to Georgia."
It's a very important to me. Yeah. Midnight
What,
Train to
what is
Georgia.
what is the importance of that for you?
Well, as a young person, I made a conscious decision to keep art separate from my professional career. I was like, whatever I do in life, which I had no goal, I really had no aspirations. My only aspiration was to continue to live as an artist by any means necessary and the work was there to support the art. I was working 9 to 5s or night shift or whatever I was doing to pay
Right.
the bills, pay the rent, to keep that roof over my art. And so that's kind of how I always took it. However, I did wonder sometimes, like, what if I just chased that standard ass Hollywood dream, just starting in the mailroom and working your way up to the top? And sometimes I would be like, I love this, and I really wish that I could like win some Oscar and all of this shit. Midnight Train to Georgia, if you've heard it and you know the lyrics,
Hmm.
is about a guy who has those dreams and goes for them. And he's got someone that really, really supports him. This would be Gladys Knight. And he's coming back from that experience. He's going back to Georgia.
Right.
I didn't have to go through that, thankfully. I didn't have to go to film school and then, or just go to Hollywood and knock on doors. I didn't put myself through that. So, whatever it is I've achieved, whatever quality people happen to think it is, whether or not they feel it's a waste of time, I've gotten really horrible reviews. I've gotten my movies pulled off of Amazon because of poor customer experience.
Right.
But Midnight Train to Georgia reminds me that I am exactly where I need to be, doing exactly what I need to be doing with the exact people that I need to be doing it with. And so the movies do show at midnight. It's the midnight screening. We are
Yes.
in Georgia, so there is a very literal sense that it makes. But in the more introspective, metaphysical sense, Midnight Train to Georgia is a very, I'm trying to think of the right word here. It affirms.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I can see that then.
It affirms.
Yeah, because I mean, everybody has dreams of something at some point. And I think in my 20s, I kind of saw myself as I'm playing in a band at the time, and we're going to be the next Earth, Wind and Fire, and this and this, and after plugging away at that for like 6 years, we had an accountant tell us, look, you guys are really good, but you don't make enough money to buy a good bag of dope. you know,
Yeah.
and he was right. And we just got to the point where, at least because we were in Virginia, and it was not the most, they weren't the most welcoming for a black band.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore we had a hard time working anywhere. So when I came to Georgia, I wasn't even intending to come here. I was going to LA. I just happened to get a gig the next night after I arrived, my first full day here, and ended up staying. But everything that's happened to me, I never, you know, I never dreamt of being a producer. It just kind of worked out that way. I was on tour with Curtis. His manager told me he owned a record label. Had I ever produced a record? I lied, said yes.
Mm.
And then he hands me Billy Paul, and the Me and Mrs. Jones guy. So
I know who that is. I know exactly who.
yeah, so I'm sitting there going, "Wow, this is going to be my first," and it was horrible. I thought for sure I was going to get fired, but I always say the only thing that saved me was the only thing worse in my production was Billy. It was at a very bad time in his life.
Okay.
Let's just leave it at that.
Okay.
And then I got a second shot to produce a 3 Degrees record, and they ended up having a hit in London or in England. So all of a sudden they could work the UK pretty much whenever they wanted. So
Yeah.
they kept me. And then, I got better, but I never had dreams of, I'm going to be the next Babyface or, or whoever big hotshot producers were. You just go in and you do what you do.
Mm.
And if other people appreciate it, then great. And if they don't, and you can still collect a paycheck, great for that too.
Yeah, yeah. It's called Gonzorific, and the word Gonzo comes from the Muppet Show.
Yeah. I know
And
you're a huge Muppet fan.
I am buzzing, and it had such a massive impact on me because I saw this group of weirdos doing their thing together, and it could bring a laugh or a tear. Usually, when they didn't know how it would end, something would either explode or get eaten. Um, for a young kid, seeing this was a big, big deal because I believed in Kermit's dream.
Yeah.
And I didn't really want to live the dream of anyone else because at a point, everyone I know that worked in industry was disillusioned and treated poorly. And very few, if any of them, got to really express themselves unfiltered. And at that point, I went, whose life do I want to live?
Right.
And it was unquestionably mine, for better or worse.
Yeah, it's very hard when you get in certain positions because then you have outside people trying to direct your directing, and that's just not a cool place to be.
No, I got it
And,
to a point with the bands where I was going to have to go on tour. I was going to have to sign with a label. And they were going to start being able to tell us what to do. I already could not stand the people I was in the band with. I'm like, this isn't me. So I quit.
yeah,
That was it.
that takes a lot of balls.
I mean, I knew that I was going to have to take that next step because when I finally got the success as a musician that I'd always wanted, which was the big paper, the big magazine drives to where you rehearse out of the city and coming to you, taking your photos. The head writer is doing your interview. You're getting the headlining gigs. You're playing the good clubs. Next step, get signed while
Right.
we were there. And then you're going to have to go on tour. And these are the bands you're going to be on tour with. And I was just like, don't want this.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize what they get into. Um, like you say, the ultimate dream is being signed, um, but it's more times than not, it's a nightmare.
Well, had I been 10 years younger, I would have done it.
Sure.
But I was a good maybe 5, 6 years out from being 30. And I was like, okay, so I quit my job. I leave my wife at home and I go out on the road. Is that where I want to be? With those people? No.
No. Well, in my experience, the closest I ever got was with actually a record deal came through musician Donald Byrd. And he was going around to all the black universities at the time. And I had just finished at Hampton Institute, and everybody that was in the band was either in Hampton or had finished. Anyway, he was looking to put together a group called the Blackbirds. And he came, listened to us play, heard our songs, was knocked out. He's like, man, you guys are going to be this and that. Drew up contracts. Now, we're like 24, 25 maybe. What do I know about a contract?
Right.
What do I know about hiring a lawyer?
Mm.
So we took it to the band director at Hampton. And he's like, well, I'm no lawyer, but you realize you don't get to keep any publishing. His name goes on anything you write, and he has you on salary. And we always did a thing where you had to have 100%, everybody had to agree on something or it wasn't going to happen.
Yeah.
And I just couldn't agree to that because I was the main writer. And I was just like, no, can't do it. Well, years later, I'm in the studio and I won't mention his name. He was formerly of the Blackbirds. He's working on a solo project. And he comes in and I relate my Blackbird story to him. And he's like, oh, no, 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 no. None of that happened with us. I was like, well, great. Well, about 2 hours later, his wife comes in. And I'm in the front and the artist is still recording. And so we started talking and I told her and she goes, oh God, they had 2 platinum records and they still had to live at home. He put them on a $200 a week salary and they don't get paid for anything that they did. And it made me feel better about my decision.
God, how vindicating, Buzz. I mean, you dodged a serious bullet there, man.
Yeah, I mean, because we were ready to jump on it because, I told you we weren't making any money playing, locally. So, but yeah, it just wasn't in the cards. And like yourself, I want to have some control over my art.
Yeah, and in the end, Buzz, it all ends up on YouTube. All of it, all the records, all the movies, it all goes to YouTube.
It does. I'm not sure how to feel about that.
It's just
what it is.
That's kind of how it shakes out, and I would rather it say written and directed by Andrew Shearer than have me be some footnote in the credits.
Yeah, executive producer.
Or Dolly Grip, or whatever it was, assistant director. Nobody.
Or what is it? Best boy.
Yeah, and while those are skilled trades,
absolutely,
I was not a skilled tradesman kind of person. I wanted to be on the art side of it, and so what do we leave behind? Well, we leave behind what we did, because at a point in time, no one's going to remember who you were. Because everybody that knew you will die and all this other whatever. But we have to assume that.
Way to cheer up an audience there.
Yeah. Well, we all know these are.
No, I know.
But what you made, if you're in the arts, is quite a significant contribution. And I would like to have something to show for my time on Earth.
Yeah.
And I don't care what they think of the quality. It exists. I existed.
And you're also a pretty brilliant photographer.
Oh, thanks.
And you got that from your dad, right? Or
I did. Yes, my dad, Roy Shearer, was quite a gifted artist in many disciplines. He was a great painter, a great illustrator, a great graphic artist and designer. Photography, though, was his area of personal expression. He didn't do it for commercial purposes. This was one he kept for himself. And so I was very intimidated to take that up. And it wasn't until Teresa Farah of Gonzorific, who stars in the film Two in the Pink, which can be purchased at gonzorific.com on the Hot Mic compilation. She got pregnant and was like, hey, so I want to get some pregnancy photos, but you're the only person I'm comfortable with seeing me naked. Would you take them? And I said, I'm no photographer. And she goes, well, I look great in your movies. Just, shoot me with that camera. So I did.
Wow.
That's how it started, literally. And so when you saw my gallery of the nudes, that was just what happened to be what I turned out to be really good at, was pictures of people without their clothes on.
Yeah. And you do a lot for Effie's too, right?
Effie's Called Follies. I owe so much to them. That doing their photography, I also shoot the Athens Classic City Roller Girls, the Athens Roller Derby team. I do their portraits as well, and so I just keep doing it because I've been asked.
Yeah, and and that's all we really like is keep being asked.
I know. I mean, I know how artists are sensitive people, and we feel like, oh, what good am I? What have I really done? What am I really doing? When other people are better at this than I am, I'm no good, and whoever thinks I'm good, they've just been fooled somehow, or they don't know what they're talking about. So to have people tell you, like, Buzz, I got you to autograph two records in my collection.
Yeah, one of them was not my favorite.
I know, but I wanted you to know that I'm your friend and I am a collaborator with you. I respect you as an artist, and
How did I sign it? Thanks for knowing I'm great.
yes, you did put that,
I,
but these
I
were
I
in
got
my
to the
collection.
I got to the point with Curtis. We would get asked for auto. I mean, the first time somebody asked me for an autograph, I was like, "That's the guy you want to, you know, want me to get him? No, no, no." And I think I did a stupid one, thanks for your support or something like that. But then I just got to the point where, hey, thanks for knowing I'm great. I figured they'll remember that one.
Yeah, no, it is, and it's true because I do know that. I knew it from the very beginning, and so to be able to work together in any capacity, really just to count you on my hand of people that I really like, that's that's really a huge deal. And I've never lost sight of that. I feel fortunate.
Well, I feel the same way, and I think it all goes back to that first night at the party with your, gunslinging guitar. Because I don't think I'd ever seen anybody play a guitar slung so low.
No, it's not usually done in an acoustic performance.
Exactly. Yeah, I've seen, some metal bands or whatever. Um, I never really followed the punk scene too much,
Mm.
which is probably why I never wandered across the street to Dottie's, or I probably would have
Probably,
caught
yeah.
you.
That would have been it. Yeah,
I
yeah.
think I went one night, but I don't remember anything about it. It's hard going to a bar when you don't drink.
That's me. If I'm not playing and I don't know the people playing, I'm probably not there.
Yeah.
It's just that simple.
So, so what do you see in the future besides more of the same?
But for Gonzerific, exploring the body as relates to media. We do feminist movies, so we are taking the framework of cult film, which was largely marketed toward men, and photographed for the male gaze and the male eye to get the male dollars. We are an evolution of that, where these movies aren't made for the men and the male eye, they are made for everyone and everything. We make them for ourselves. And so we are all getting older. We are getting gray hair. Our
Hmm.
bodies are changing. All of this stuff. We're to the point where creatively, there is a thing in culture that says these people do not belong making art, let alone art like this.
Hmm.
So I plan to continue for as long as I can get away with this. And as long as people like D will do me the honor of letting me photograph them and put them in film, I want to show off everybody for as long as humanly possible. As long as we can stand, and then we will sit and make these things. And when we cannot sit and make these things, we will lay and make these things. I
Get the
really want
old
to change.
walker out.
Yeah. And so in punk rock, if you see the old farts up there saying, this or that and screaming and yelling, like, well, what are they screaming and yelling about? Right. But they mean it.
Yeah.
They do mean it. And so I want to be known as someone that means it. And I cannot think of any better way of showing that we meant it when we were doing it when we were younger than by continuing to mean it and do it when we're old.
But you also have a um, newer people coming in and out.
We do.
So it's not like, everybody in, 5 years time is going to be rolling into it with, you're going to be doing wheelchair movies or anything.
It's true, and my friends for the most part do tend to be younger than I am.
Yeah.
But I think it's because I have not reached that stage of life where I want to stay inside and not know anyone.
I'm right there with you.
I do think life is about leaving your house. Even though right now leaving your house could kill you, I'm still leaving my house.
Yeah. Well, you have to. You have to venture out and see what else is beyond your four walls.
What script would I write? What story would I think of?
Yeah, where would your inspiration come from?
No. My inspiration is people, Buzz.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. I'm not inspired by sitting around smelling my own farts. I'm inspired by experience and by knowing others and by hearing their stories and seeing their talent. I'm inspired by talented people.
Yeah. Well, in that sense, we're very alike because I, I've I've just kind of found this girl in Latvia who I've been working with. She's 26, 27, and she's got a bright future ahead of her, and it inspires me to do good work with her. So, you know, you you got to get out. You got to see what else is out there.
Absolutely. Never make up our minds about the world the way it is, or think that it should bend to the way we feel it should be. A lot of the tropes of being old. But we are both young people still, I feel, Buzz, and the fact that we have this zeal for creativity and still are open to the way that our world and art can change us, I think says that we're on the right track. We're doing
I
the
think
right
that'll
thing.
always keep you young as well.
Yeah, yeah,
You
we're living
know,
right, I feel.
most of my friends are in your age bracket. People in my age bracket don't get it. Don't get me unless they're a musician.
Right.
But anybody else I meet that's outside of that, it's like, what do you do for a real job? Okay, uh, you know, it's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So one last question, and you've kind of answered this along the way, but for someone who is trying to be creative and be an artist, be it in film or music or whatever medium they choose, what kind of advice do you have for them?
I would say to be confident in your own originality. Be confident knowing that there is not another human being on the planet that's ever created that has the exact same brain and experience in life as you do. And let that be your driving force. Let that be the thing that lets you know that your perspective should be recorded and preserved. It's worth listening to. It is worth putting out there. Don't ever think you've got nothing to contribute or you're just another number. You're not, absolutely not. By virtue of your existence, you're an original. And in times when you're struggling with what you should do, don't second guess it. Don't hesitate. Throw it out there, man. You
Yeah,
really have nothing to lose but time wasted wondering if you should do it.
or regrets later on,
That's right.
and nobody wants those.
No, no, and every dumb thing that I've ever done, every thing that I was just like, whoa, what was I thinking? I was stone cold sober when I did that shit. I have nothing to blame it on.
Right. Well, that's pretty amazing. And I don't use this word often, and you know this, but that's awesome.
Thanks. Oh, man, we got a real awesome.
You
Holy,
did. Uh,
all
you
right,
know.
boys. All
So
right.
I'm gonna let you because I'm assuming your biggest production, Lena, is asleep now, or is
Oh
she
yeah.
downstairs playing drums?
No, 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 not at this hour. No, no, no. The future Shearer is sound asleep, getting energy to carry on for the future.
Yeah. Well, and she's done a couple of movies uh, that are they on YouTube as well?
No, I'm gonna let her decide when she's older how much of her image and name and everything
Right.
it wants to be shared with the rest of the world. Because I feel that that next generation is not going to be the social media generation. That next
Yeah.
generation is going to be the let me live my own life and
God, I hope
my
so.
face off. I think that's what it's going to be.
I still have a Christmas picture with her on my refrigerator, but it needs to be updated.
Oh
She's
yeah,
quite a
trust me.
bit.
Once we get past all this
Yeah.
craziness and we can get them
Well, hopefully
safely,
you'll have a show this year.
I am absolutely going to. That is going to be November. I believe that's 11th and 12th or 12th and 13th, whatever that weekend is.
Oh, okay.
I believe it's the 12th and 13th of November. And then we're going to do a streaming one that Sunday night early.
So now I have three to go to.
And Cine is vaccination, proof of vaccination or COVID test, negative test required to
Okay.
enter the building.
And I'm going to have dead stuff ready for you.
Okay.
I
Oh
am
my
going.
God.
I haven't forgotten it.
That will be perfect. Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah,
Cool.
I've gotten all the way up to the dance.
All right, great.
So, which is the hard part and the hard.
It is, and it's we have not been able to properly release that one
Right.
because of the music that was used, and so we'll be forever in your debt.
Yeah. No, we want to get that one right. So I keep returning to that one periodically.
I mean, it's going to be worth.
Because the hardest part of it, I can do everything with it, but you have the psycho stuff, the psycho movements in the beginning.
Mhm.
So I have to really think of that because, I don't want to completely borrow from Bernard Herrmann,
Yeah.
but a little borrowing never hurt anybody.
Well, I mean, Bernard Herrmann was already completely borrowed from anyway, from the Reanimator score by Richard Band,
And I watched that movie because I knew it was one of your favorites.
but that's a complete psycho lift.
Yeah,
I mean, there's just no way around it. It almost sounds like Bernard Herrmann until you get the electronic drums that identify it as definitely an 80s score.
well, maybe I can do something hybrid with that. I'll have to.
Go to YouTube, play Psycho Bernard Herrmann, and then play Reanimator Richard Band, and you'll see what I mean.
Yeah, I've got the Bernard Herrmann score for Psycho, which it still amazes me that that's a string quartet.
It's bananas.
There's a couple of scores that really stick out to me for the originality of them. Though I was not a big fan of the movie The Firm,
Yes.
Dave Grusin does the whole thing on piano.
Is that right?
There's nothing else in that movie but piano.
I didn't notice, so that
Exactly, that's how good it was.
Wow, okay.
And so that's I would like to find something equally original to do like that because who would have thought just I'm just going to play piano on this, you know.
You're talking to a guy who literally, for one of his movies, couldn't come up with the sound he wanted, so I sat behind the drum kit and played the whole kit,
Yeah.
every piece, and that was the score.
Yeah.
Every nut, every screw, every piece of that kit I played.
Yeah. What's your favorite movie so far this year?
Right now, my favorite movie so far this year, Candyman.
Really?
Yes.
Well, that's saying something.
Yeah, and the score for that is incredible.
Because usually every year you tell me what your 10 favorites are,
Mhm.
and I make a point to try and go to see as many of them as I can.
Very flattering.
And I'm very rarely disappointed. I think the only one I ever really got disappointed on was it Lobster?
Not for all tastes.
Yeah, yeah, that was. I was like, I'll just give Andrew. He saw something else in this that I'm missing.
Yeah. No, that's a hard ask for anybody to lobster.
But you're viewing a movie from. I'm assuming, kind of the way I end up. We were talking about listening to a record. You watch it for one thing, but you're also, wow, that was a great shot. I like how this transition. You're seeing all the other things that people like me just don't necessarily notice.
Yeah, the lobster was just a very out there concept,
Yeah.
and it was very deadpan humor to the point where you weren't sure if you should laugh at it.
Exactly.
And that for me meant great, because my feeling about comedy is it doesn't matter if people laugh.
Yeah.
Are we going for a laugh or are we going for comedy?
Right. And there is a difference.
There's an absolutely a difference.
All right. Well, on that note, I'm going to let you go create some art. It's getting towards that hour.
It is, and I've got a lot. I'm shooting in Knoxville this coming weekend, and so I've got to get that movie together.
Oh,
I'm getting my plan together. I'm a cast meeting tomorrow on Zoom. But Buzz, it's been a pleasure, an honor.
yeah. I really appreciate you doing this, and it's good to talk to you without the 15 minutes before a show.
Yes, and also I should say you are great at running a conversation, man. You've kept this thing moving great. I've been asked questions that no other interviewer has ever asked me. I believe the perspective you're coming from has got honestly more in common with me than anyone who's ever spoken to me in an interview before. So this
Well, now it's my turn to be flattered. Um, I'm still learning about this, and 90% of people I've talked to, I already kind of know, so that's helped.
it's called research,
Yeah.
Call it what you want, but that's what a good interviewer does. So
Yeah.
it was an honor, a pleasure.
Well, thanks for helping me with my chops, and I'll be talking with you.
Thanks, Buzz.
Thank you.